Hi, I'm Rigger. This is You Are Right, and this is just a quick little video of sort of a concern that's been creeping into my mind. I'm going to happily admit off the bat that there isn't a whole lot of evidence for this. It's not overwhelming, I'm not convinced. It's more like creeping suspicion, and I'll tell you why I have those thoughts, and also that I want to make it clear I'm not saying to worry or anything, and I'm not saying I'm definitely right for this one. I just thought I'd bring it up just in case, and sort of gauge the room, or at least bring up the concept, because I haven't heard anyone really talk about it. And that's the idea that we might not be heading to Vacuo at all in the story. Or at least Team RWBY is never going to Vacuo at all. And I know that almost sounds a bit silly, like, the show is clearly planned, like when you started the show. The idea is that Team RWBY go to Beacon, and then Beacon falls, and then they do the journey around to all 4 vaults, meaning they go all the way around the world, and the last one is the Beacon Vault, and they wind up back where they started and have a big showdown, maybe head over to Salem's country or something for a final battle or something, who knows. But I understand that that stands to reason, that's sort of why it's laid out like that, and you get to tour like 4 different locations as you go to each vault, and that all makes sense. And I do agree that I think that was the plan when we started. But there are some points against that that have been sort of resounding in my mind lately, and for a little while actually, and I thought I'd share them before we find out the actual answer. Because online, for sure, it is just expected that we're going to Vacuo. People talking about Vacuo outfits, that kind of thing. It's been that way for a while, and I understand that's the expectation. Like I said, I'm in support of that. That's how I want it to go. I want to end up in Vacuo. I want to see it. I want to do things as expected. I want to go on that tour. I want RWBY to last a lot longer, but that doesn't mean it's the reality, and I just want to discuss that now because over time, I've just become unsure that's actually what they're going to do. And like I said, I don't want to be right about this, but let's look at it. So first off, let's think about the upcoming ending to this volume, to Volume 9. It makes all the sense in the world, to me at least, and I've said since the beginning, that the last thing you would see in this volume would be a glimpse of Remnant. Those who are returning will return, and the final shot, maybe even the after-credit stinger, will be a glimpse of what they see. They go through the tree, they pop back on Remnant and see probably something crazy to hook you back in to come back next volume, right? Like, what are the possibilities? And then cut, and then you have to wait and come back. That is a very smart way to do it, a very effective way to do it. That's how I would do it. There's no reason not to do it that way. It's the most interesting way you could go about things to hook people to come back. My usual go-to for an example has always been they go to Vacuo, but it's on fire. Like, it's destroyed. They go back through, they expect to come out in Vacuo where everyone is, and when they pop out, it's like abandoned, and I mean, calling it a wasteland might be a little redundant, but all the buildings are razed to the ground, there's things on fire, there's no one around except maybe bodies, it's bleak, it's devastating, they missed something crazy, and while I think that's a good hook, because it immediately makes you worry, what happened to everyone who was here, all of our friends, all the people, what condition is the vault in, you know, all these things you need to know, and you don't get to know until you come back. And I think that's a really good idea, and I've always liked it, and it certainly would be, we end up where we expected, but there is a hook to draw you back in, and that's probably good. That might be the best option that comes to mind, but I'm not sure it's actually going to happen. And I'm not sure it makes a whole lot of sense with where we are right now. One of the fallacies of that is we fell into Ever After because we made a portal bridge that went through a sort of extra-dimensional place, and the destination was Vacuo. But why do we think that just because we fell into somewhere there, that when we pop back out, we will also pop back out in Vacuo? Very notably in Vacuo, Ambrosius's gate left. So why do we think that just because we fell in there, that our ending destination will be the same place? The only answer I can think of is that the tree is just super magical and has heaps of abilities and knows where we want it to go and will put us there. But that seems like we're relying a lot on something that isn't an ally, and we have no idea how much power it has on the other side of the Ever After. How much power it has over Remnant at all. We don't know where Alex popped out. We don't know if it only has one place it can send you. We don't know if it's random. We don't know anything. Which also means you could do something crazy, like they pop out in Evernight Castle, like just Salem's place, because for some reason it connects there. I have actually seen my friend Dan saying that he thinks it might pop out in the Pool of Creation, because there's a tree there and it's linked to creation and magic, and that's not a bad idea, although I've always assumed that place was completely destroyed by meteor strikes, but if he's right, that's a great idea. but also not in Vacuo, or it doesn't seem to be. Hi, Editing Rigger here with a quick little drop-in. Just a thought, when we've seen Vacuo in the past, they have always done like an oasis sort of thing, and that's always been a thing, especially for fantasy, but in general in deserts. If there was a chance that the sort of main oasis that sustained life in Vacuo was actually the leftovers of the Pool of Creation, it wasn't as powerful and magic as it used to be with the gods gone, but it is like sustaining life. That would be really cool, and the reason that Vacuo is a full desert is because it was destroyed by meteors. You know, it was completely destroyed and ruined, and that's why it's a desert now. Also, Vacuo is said to have the largest recorded deposit of dust, so if you believe the whole dust is the leftovers of the first people kind of thing, that whole idea, I mean, maybe that stands to reason considering where the battle went down, so there really could be something to this. And also, while I'm here, in the books, there is a weird scene where Sun falls asleep and imagines a tree that glows gold in the sun, and it helps him center himself, and it helped him discover his semblance. And he's in Vacuo at the time, and no one else saw this tree, but he remembers it vividly, and it brings him feelings of calm. Just saying, golden tree, and if all this adds up and the pool and everything was in Vacuo, and it activated his semblance, and talk about magic and gods, that could be a thing. So while I'm discrediting the purpose and point of my own video at the beginning, apparently, just while I'm connecting dots on the fly, that is a cool idea, so mark that one down. Maybe Dan is really onto something. Dan is great, go check out Dan. But obviously we always thought it was over on the other continent because of the shape of the continents, where one is the Western Dragon and one is the Eastern Dragon, which is the forms they take. I did actually come up with a theory of where that's meant to be. I'll link it at the end of this video if you're interested, because I still think that's where it is. But also coming back to where we are lately, I've been making theories and ideas about the cat being the crown, or at least related to the crown. And maybe you believe that, maybe you don't. But if it is true, or doesn't even matter if you think it's true or not, if you think that this place is a vault or connected to a vault in any way, what makes you think it's the Vacuo vault? Because if the cat is the crown or related to the crown, that would stand to reason this is somehow related to the Beacon vault. So, if that were the case, or if they were in a random vault, I don't really see this being connected to the Vault of Destruction. I mean, there is the Jabberwocker here that destroys, but the cat doesn't necessarily have a destruction theme going on that I can see. The cat, of course, being the most notable creature here, at least. But either way, I don't see this being Destruction's vault. I don't see them getting out of here with the sword. So if they are popping out of a vault, it's Beacon's vault, which would place them in Beacon, which is, notably, not Vacuo. But that also is a decent hook. If you're still trying to hook people in, they go through the exit and they're expecting to pop out in Vacuo, and bam, they pop out in Beacon. And whatever's going on at Beacon is going on. And they're confused and confronted. And we get to see, like, a new updated Beacon. And that's weird and crazy, and then cut. You know, that's also a good hook, but it doesn't put you at Vacuo. The only way I can see them getting to Vacuo quickly, because they're half a world away. If they're in Beacon, they are half a world away from Vacuo. How are you going to get there quickly? Even by airship, it's going to take ages. So the only way I can see it is Raven. Is if they pop into the world, and as they do, Raven can somehow sense that Yang is back, and she is in on things and helping, appears to them through a portal by connecting to Yang, and then can connect them to Vacuo back through a portal because Crow is there. Because I understand the setup, that everyone went to Vacuo. That Ren and Nora went to Vacuo, the Aesops went to Vacuo, Crow was heading to Vacuo, they're all heading to Vacuo, Oscar's in Vacuo. You think that's where we should be going, but I'm here to tell you that there are many ways to run this where that's not at all what happens. I'll cover that a little bit later, but next I want to talk about the fact that, honestly, from an outside perspective, it looks like RWBY as a show has been picking up the pace of heading towards the end. I'm not sure if it's because of changes and difficulties over at Rooster Teeth changing my perception, or perhaps being unsure of just how many volumes they're actually going to get. It's been 10 years of this show. How much longer do you think this show is going to run? I will give you that it's quite a big show for Rooster Teeth. It gets them a lot of audience and it's good for them. But how much longer is everyone going to keep working on this show? Plus, we've had issues with lots of staff leaving or being fired or whatever. I'm not going to go totally into that, but you have to admit that their staffing for another RWBY season seems down, and obviously they could do more hiring, but you get my point. Also, I will concede they just made a deal with Crunchyroll, but we're yet to see how successful that is for them. And apparently, Volume 10 isn't greenlit yet, and there's lots of shows that would make a deal with Crunchyroll to host one season of their show, and they've acquired all the past volumes of RWBY, so if someone wants to watch it back, it's all on that site. So, who knows how that deal's going to work, and I'm not going to speculate any further than that, but it's something worth thinking about in this equation, that it doesn't necessarily mean that they're safe just because they made a big deal. Moving back to the cat and crown stuff, if it is correct, another reason I think that is because it feels like they are swiftly moving towards an ending and that would speed things up, rather than spending time going all the way to Beacon and protecting its vault. You instead get out of here with the crown sort of early in quotation marks, and suddenly it's in play, and you're swiftly moving towards an ending because there's another relic in the world, and you probably can't put it back too easily. So, what I'm saying to you is, if the cat is the crown or related to it, and it comes into play, and we missed what happened in Vacuo, and someone has already got the sword out of the vault while we weren't there, which can totally happen and be explained in flashbacks and war stories, then suddenly we have all 4 relics in play in the world, meaning you legitimately could wrap up RWBY in like one more long volume if you really wanted to rush it. Or 2 if you weren't as rushed. That's quicker than probably anyone wants, but honestly, 10 is a nice round number and it could happen. 11 is not far past that. And that means that all of RWBY takes 11, 12 years, which honestly is a really long time for any show to run at all. It's already a long time for a show to have run. Because as far as devastating Team RWBY and showing how serious things are, rather than them showing up in Vacuo and having missed the war there and having to pick up the pieces and try and find their friends, you have them even pop out at Beacon and have totally missed everything that happened in Vacuo. You weren't there to help, don't you feel bad? And any survivors they do meet, their friends and Ran and Nora and all that, tell them what happened, and you get these horrible flashbacks and talk to the survivors who fled and learn who died, all these horrible deaths that you weren't even there for that crush your soul, all these things they have to overcome. People like Crow, Nora, Ran, Oscar, they can all still have survived and escaped, or maybe some of them not, although it feels a bit cheap to kill them off screen, but if you want to trim down your extraneous characters, you can easily kill some people. The Aesops, all dead. You could kill Team Sun, you could kill Team Coffee, you can say that the headmaster and everything over there died. Don't have to worry about making them, or showing them too much, don't have to worry about any of that, and they are the losses of war, and that pain you feel is good because, it makes things serious and real, but also you don't have to deal with them in the story, and it motivates our characters, and it hurts just enough because you do sort of know them, and the other characters hurt if you know them from the books, etc. And it's not ideal, but I can see it happening. This also leaves out another thing you could do that I've talked about before that could really punch Team RWBY in the gut and punch the audience in the gut for a reveal, which is, let's say you spill out back into the world and there's been a time skip. That time moved faster for Remnant. It's been years. That Jean does not get aged down. That actually he's on similar age to everyone else when we get back. That Team RWBY has been left behind in ages. That while they were here, everyone else has aged up 10 years. Nora is 10 years older, Ren is 10 years older, Oscar is 10 years older. And when they come out, that's one of the things they see, is they expect to see their friends and these older, people turn around, just like when Jean was revealed. And the whole world, lots has happened. You've missed a lot, including a whole war. And, they pop out holding the crown, bringing it into play, and the sword is already in play, it's come out of its vault. Again, many extraneous characters could have died in all of that time. Things could have changed. It could be a new maiden. All these things that could have happened off screen that isn't there. Well, it is there to skip over stuff, but also it's not to make you feel like you were cheaped out on, but more to make you feel like, oh my god, the consequences of being away. The consequences of Team RWBY not being in the world, etc. You can even do crazy stuff like alliance switches. What if you came out and Mercury and Cinder were on your side, and they start to attack when they go, wait, because things have changed in all this time. It's a really crazy card to play, but that doesn't mean you can't play it. Meaning, you could legitimately pop out at Beacon and pop out at the final stand. It's been a year, or 10 years, or whatever, and you pop out at Beacon, and you're with the last vestiges of humanity. Good Witch is there, Crow, and Raven, and Nora, and Ren, and Oscar, and they're all at Beacon, and they're holding out, protecting the last vault. Maybe they have the Sword of Destruction, and it's the one thing they're using to keep Salem back. It's the only weapon they really have, them and some maidens. And that's all they have to defend the last thing. And then Team RWBY pop out with the crown. Oh my god, you screwed it all up. And the crown is out now. And if Salem gets us, she gets both relics. And then that can happen. And then endgame. And you've, really have sped through things. I think that would feel cheap to be that quick. But that, again, doesn't mean it's not possible. And I worry about it. Another point that I mentioned was the books. The very existence of the books has worried me since they went to Vacuo. And I think a good way to elaborate what I mean is by saying that whole section of the plot, if it was for later, like when we revealed Atlas, that was a big reveal. And while only a small portion of the audience has read the books, because that's just how it works, it's still not a total reveal because you can find out a lot about Vacuo. You can find out who the headmaster is, you can find out all those things. But you couldn't do that for Haven, you couldn't do that for Atlas. So why did they give it away in supplementary material here? Sure, to make the supplementary material, but I don't know, it feels like something that you could have saved for big moments if you were going to put a large portion of the show there to do the reveals and the get-to-know-yous and be shown around, and instead, we got a journey there to introduce everything and start everything as if it wasn't really necessary to know for the plot. As if it wasn't really necessary to learn on screen. Now sure, Team RWBY can still learn it, but then it feels like doing the same thing over again. Basically, I think a really good example of this is Neo's past. We just learnt a bit about Neo's past on screen that you can put together from context clues. If you really want to know, you can go and read the book. But it's not necessary to know. We got all that we needed to know on screen here, and that's probably all they're going to really elaborate on it in the overall show. Again, the supplementary material is there, go and read it. So, why isn't the Vacuo situation the same? That we will get little bits of what we need to know on screen in like flashbacks and bits, but it's not really important to the overall thing, except that things happen there, and if you want to know more, go read the books. If you want to know more about Vacuo, and all the details of living there and what it's like, go read the books, but we're not really going to cover that. It's just, here's some things that sort of happen in Vacuo in flashbacks or in some small scenes, but we're moving the plot onwards. It's not the main point. Because they did that for Neo, I'm worried that's what they're doing for Vacuo, if that makes sense. And also, look, there's more practicality here. People always call for new Vacuo outfits, and I can understand why. They're going from a place that was super cold to a place that's really deserty. Let's change up their look. Well, if they spill out into Beacon and straight into basically a war, you can dodge that. You don't have to do all the work of making new models, new clothes, new designs, and, doing all that. No, they're in the fray, they don't have time for that, there aren't times to do all those things, and suddenly, the whole team that you have working on them doesn't have to spend all that time designing new things, rigging new things, making sure they all work, and instead, just get into making the volume. And if that was the case, it might be because it's one of the end volumes, if not the end, then the second end, and you want it to be good quality. So let's not put all that time into making new models and designing everything. No, you just start making the volume as good as you can make it. That also gives their outfits and designs like 3 nice beats, because 3 is just one of those things that always feels nice to humans. It's part of how our brain works. Beginning, middle, and end, you have 3 designs for each of the girls. The only point against that I can see is RWBY seems to be changing and going through some changes. But even then, you could just change her outfit as, the protagonist. Or at least as the central protagonist for this ending, because, she's the main focus now that we're heading towards the ending. And the others have done their sort of character development, and then you only have to redesign one character. I'm just saying it could happen, especially when you look at the opening to Volume 9, and RWBY's the one that's sort of going through changes and stuff here, but the others not so much. And they're emphasizing, beginning, middle, end with those 3 beats of outfits and that kind of thing. And another big worry I have that's sort of the end of this is my suspicions are there because things might be growing a little stale. And I don't mean that in necessarily that I don't want more RWBY or anything, because I do, but look at the breakdown of how the volumes have gone. We spanned 3 volumes at Beacon before the big fall. And that was sort of a vault showdown, but it didn't work out with anyone getting the relic. Then we spent a travel volume and another volume getting to a vault to protect a relic. And then we had to spend another volume traveling, and then 2 more volumes stopping Salem getting another relic. Then we go to this volume, and this is like a growing volume, a character development volume, which again raises my suspicions. Are we doing people's character development or really kickstarting it to head towards the ending? Are we doing big developments here emotionally and for people, and then when they head back, they can resolve their issues over another volume or so, and that's the ending? But my point is, are we going to pop out in Vacuo, do a whole nother volume protecting another vault, then maybe even another volume of travel back to Beacon, and then another volume or two protecting that vault and getting an ending? That would mean that you're expecting at least another 3 volumes, and if not 4, that's a lot to ask, and when we've already been going 10 years. Do we think that they plan to last long enough and can last long enough to do all of that? Is this going to be a 15-year show? I'm not sure it is, and that's just a concern. It's not something I have tons of evidence for, but it's just a growing feeling I have where we are in the story and what's left. There's still 2 relics left, and we're at volume 9. Well, if that evened out, we're not getting to like 18 or something for sure. So, what are they going to do? And if they are speedrunning it, this is how I can say that I can see them speedrunning it. This is how I can see them kickstarting the development through. And us being away and things happening while we're not there is a great way to do it, because it makes sense. The world continues while we're not there. And who knows the time difference and that kind of thing. And when we pop out, right now, Salem, when we left, Salem has relics. So she could have done crazy things. I've said before, she should almost just be winning when we get back with what she has. She has all of her powers. She has Cinder at her side, and she has at least the Relic of Creation, and that thing is devastating if used correctly, and I've made videos on that, about just how powerful that thing is if you use it right. So when I put all that together, the whole popping out at Beacon and being there to protect the last relic, and possibly having the Sword of Destruction on your side because the Maiden in Vacuo got it out of the vault to use it to defend Vacuo, and then they all had to run, and now it's one of the only weapons they have to fight back Salem, but it can never hold her back completely, because even if you destroy her personally, she just reforms, so it's holding back her forces, and they're using it to stick and move. And they might even have 3 maidens on their side still if they have Winter and Raven and whoever the other maiden is. That could be a thing. And then you have them die, or someone else is the maiden. You pop out and Nora is now a maiden. It happened off screen because of all the crazy things that happened in Vacuo. And also, it lets them add another book. If they don't have that long left on production to make the volumes, they can say, if you want to find out what happened in Vacuo, bam, one more book, go buy it. Or, even if it's not a book, a special, right? So we do the volume, and then we need to take a break before we make the last volume. And in that time, we'll make a little movie sort of thing, a movie production that might not be full length, and you can find out the events of Vacuo in a special. Go watch that, pay us to watch that. Release it like a film. That could be a thing. I can see them doing that. It's not even a bad business idea at all. And that's the thing that tides you over while they get, let's say, 2 years to work on the last volume, and then that's the big ending, and then we're done. And just give us enough info in the volumes that technically you don't have to watch the movie to know what happened. It would just really fill in the gaps. But otherwise, the show is still watchable, so you can't claim that you're gouging your audience. All that can work. Either way, my point is, I have these suspicions. I'm not confirming them. I don't have inside info. It's just something I worry about, and I wanted to just put it out and just see how other people thought. Do you like the idea? Some people like that idea. I even talked about writing a thing that I might even still do, depending how this volume ends, about how things could have changed. But as far as ending stingers, walking out and seeing people aged up, walking out and seeing things destroyed, they're really good. They're good hooks to bring you back. And yeah, I just think the reality of it is there's a chance we don't go to Vacuo. And if that is the case, how do you all feel? What do you think of this? And again, I'm not pushing it like a good idea. I just wanted to gauge what everyone thought. So that's the video. That's all it is. That's not overwhelming evidence. It's just a discussion of an idea. And I don't want anyone to panic or worry. I'm not saying this is the case. And I'm also not saying I want this to be the case. I'm not pushing this as an idea. I'm just putting forward what I can possibly see happening. But nonetheless, nothing to worry about. We've got more of Volume 9 to go. We've got at least another volume hopefully coming after that, so long as things are greenlit and everything's fine. The only thing to worry about right now is whatever happened to RWBY and what's going to happen for the ending. So, not to panic, but just thought it was worth discussing. And until next time, My name is Rigger. Hope you have a wonderful day. Please don't panic, and hope I did alright.